now well into free agency. We're like really getting into it now.
Yeah, and the Eagles were kind of slow to get started, but they've been bargain hunting for the last couple of days, and we'll talk about some of those bargains.
Yeah, a new cornerback in the mix. We'll get into it and much more on this edition of the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. Reuben Frank and Dave Zangaro. Reuben, I want to start off by talking and bragging about myself, how good of a son I am. My mom had a 6 a.m. flight today.
Oh.
Picked her up at 4 a.m. A lot of coffee so far.
So you got her to the airport about not a lot of traffic, even on a Friday morning, heading to the airport. So you got her there about 4:30.
Around that, yeah.
And she made her flight okay.
Made the first flight okay. One more flight to go, but she's doing good. Yeah.
Okay, well, good for you. So you got up about 3:30.
Well, I was going to get up at 3:30. That would have given me enough time, but I actually got up at 3 because there was a lunar eclipse last night, and I thought it would be cool. I might as well wake up a little bit early to see it. Wake up all excited, walk outside, and just complete cloud cover.
Yeah, it was real cloudy overnight. A lot of people disappointed.
Yeah,
couldn't see that eclipse.
That's all right. You know, what are you going to do? All right, let's talk a little bit of football. Adoree Jackson coming to the Eagles on a 1-year deal. They lose Darius Slay. And Isaiah Rodgers, obviously, both leaving. So I think this move is not about like replacing Slay as the starter. To me, it's more about just adding some depth. This might be more of the Isaiah Rodgers replacement.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. And he's a guy who started some games, and he's played a lot of football. So if at some point he does have to play, it's not new to him. He's done it before, but I see him as a depth piece again. If he makes the team, and who knows, with a lot of these guys, could be anywhere from not making the team to being a backup or a spot starter at some point. So he falls into that category. My trivia question: he's got the longest pick six against the Eagles in the last 12 years. 76-yarder off Jalen in 23. So yeah, he's a good guy to have around. He's not a great player, but he's got some experience, and you can do worse than having him in here as a depth piece.
I rewatched that play. Not a great tackling attempt by Jalen at the end of that one.
Well, that's fine. I think you'd rather give up the touchdown than have him stick his nose in there and try to make a tackle.
Yeah, you're right. It was just funny. He went up around the collar. It didn't work.
That's good.
Adoree Jackson, 29, first-round pick back in 2017 out of USC. Spent his first 4 years with the Titans, last 4 years with the Giants. If you guys remember, he signed a 3-year, $39 million deal in 2021. He was visiting the Giants. His next stop was going to be in Philly. He was going to go visit the Eagles. He never left. He never left the Giants. He just signed there. And then, a bunch of years later, he ends up in Philly anyway.
Yeah, it seems to happen a lot. Right? You guys, and we talked about this the other day. You get to know some. In this case, they didn't get to know him, but you meet with a guy, you have some time with him, you bring him into the building, and you just store that information away for the future. Maybe in 3 years and 6 years, you call that guy's agent and say, "Hey, we need what he has, and we liked him." And seems like there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, and I think with the consistency the Eagles have in their front office with their general manager, I think that stuff tends to happen more often. A lot of these teams, they're shuffling. The Eagles are shuffling because they're losing talent, but Howie's been there, and he'll go back to his evaluations.
Oh, yeah, no question. And I'm guessing he has a pretty good filing system, notes on players that he meets with.
Yeah, I would think so. I don't know how much Adoree Jackson really has left. He ended up playing last year for the Giants. He didn't sign until after training camp. The Giants brought him in, and he ended up playing a little bit, probably a lot more than they really wanted him to have to play. So I think that this is a move that has a wide range of outcomes. I think there's a chance that Kelee Ringo, maybe Kelee Ringo's not ready, and they're like, oh man, he can't play, and they got to throw the veteran. He starts games this year, and I think there's also a route here where they look at him in camp and they go, "Oh, he's cooked. We can't even have him on the roster." So I think there's a lot of different things that can happen with Adoree Jackson.
Yeah, and like I was saying, I think that's the case with a lot of these guys. They could be anywhere from not making the team to a decent backup to a spot starter. And until you get them onto the field and really see what they're all about, what they have left, how they can run, how they move at this point in their careers, because they're all somebody that's got something, like there's some reason their value was low. Either their production declined over a period of years, or they're older, or they're coming off an injury, serious injury. So the guys that the Eagles are targeting are all guys that for some reason have minimum value because of something in their past. So just by definition, these guys are all, I don't want to say long shots, but they're all guys who have something to prove and something to bounce back from.
Yeah, and I think the real function of this signing might be just to push Kelee Ringo. I don't think they want to just hand Kelee Ringo this job. He's a player who played a lot as a rookie, didn't play very much last year just because he got buried on the depth chart when they drafted Quinion and Cooper, and then got Isaiah Rodgers back off of suspension. I don't think they've like lost any love for Kelee Ringo. I think it was just like circumstance pushed him down the depth chart a little bit.
Yeah, no question about it. And I still think he's the favorite for that spot. But yeah, you have a insurance policy, I guess, a potential insurance policy if he's not ready, or if he gets hurt, or who knows what happens. So again, it's a move with really no downside. There's no cap implications. There's no dead money if it doesn't work out. But if he can still play, you get a year out of a guy as a backup cornerback who's played a little bit and you can trust. So we'll see what direction it goes. There's a bunch of these guys now to keep an eye on OTAs and training camp and see how much juice they have left.
What are your thoughts on Kelee?
I'm bullish on Kelee. I like him. I think he can play. I think he's got some things to work on. And we talked about, he can be really handsy. But when you look at his length and his speed, he's got tools. And he did play a lot. He played over 300 snaps or close to it as a rookie 2 years ago, and then didn't play much at all in defense last year. But I like him. And I think with another offseason with Christian Parker working on just his hands and keeping his hands off receivers, and if they're on him to understand what's going to draw a penalty and what's not. I think he's committed 8 penalties in 2 years and limited playing time. Now, a couple of those are on special teams too, so that's a different category. But I like the player, and I think he's got a chance to be a plus starting cornerback, outside cornerback. He's he can run. We've seen that. He can be sticky in coverage. He's just got to keep those hands from pushing and grabbing and doing things that refs are going to call, and to understand what they're going to call and what they're not going to call and what he can get away with. And that's something that just takes time. And I think every young cornerback has to learn that. Now, Quinion and Cooper seem to know it and understand it innately when they got here, and they didn't have any trouble with that. But that's really the big question with Kelee is the penalties. And I think, he's a young guy. He's 22. He'll learn. And I think he can be a pretty good starting cornerback.
Yeah, I think the difference is Keelee's size is what makes him unique. And there's like a fine line of using that to your advantage, but not letting it hurt you. Because his size is unique. Like, he's a big guy. He's like 6'2", over 200 pounds. Like, that's a rare size for a cornerback. So that can help, but I think it's also like you got a magnifying glass on you at times too.
Yeah, no question about it. And he'll learn. I think it's something that he'll figure out and get better at. Again, he's a young guy. I mean, I think he had just turned 21 when they drafted him, or he was still 20. And he's got that Georgia thing going for him. So that's a big plus around here too.
Yeah. So Adoree Jackson, the most recent, like, notable signing. Apparently the Eagles have signed a long snapper Uh, kind of a weird situation. Aaron Wilson, veteran reporter. Apparently they have a new long snapper, Charlie Hewlett, who played a long time with the Browns. He's alongside. I don't know how to. I think Lovato. There were some bad snaps this year. We saw that in the playoffs, especially. We were giving credit for Braden Mann getting down some of those wacky snaps. I don't know. I don't have much on the long snapper. Do you?
That's your category. That's your area of expertise.
Long snappers?
Yeah.
I'll take the punters.
Yeah. Well, and the Eagles have had, I think, 3 long snappers in the last 25 years between Bartram and then Dorenbos and then I think who was before Bartram? Was it Morris Unatoa? So I mean, it's been a position of great steadiness over the years. So it's kind of shocking to see a potential change there. I'm kind of shaken up actually right now. I mean, Rick Lovato is one of the handful of guys who's been here since he was on the Super Bowl team in 2017. So.
Yeah, you're right. That list is quickly just dissolving.
It's dwindling.
Yeah. Hewlett is 34. He has played in 152 games, which is like those are the stats long snappers get. He does have 26 tackles in his career.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I guess.
I don't know. So, I mean, it must be that they must have thought Lovato struggled last year because they've been so cognizant to not screw up that operation. You know, they always talk about the operation, how important it is to get those 3 guys in sync together. To make a move like this, you have to feel like you're getting an upgrade.
Yeah, no question about it.
It's not like the money was, you're not breaking the bank for either of these guys.
No, we're talking about minimum wage, unless Rick Lovato wanted a big deal. So the only guys left from the 17th Super Bowl are Lane Johnson and Jake Elliott. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Because assuming BG retires.
Yeah. He's the only other one.
That's crazy.
It is when you but it also isn't. I mean, that's the NFL. It might be crazier that they've had this many for this. You know what I mean? Like the NFL turns over pretty quickly.
Yeah, and Stout.
Oh, the coach. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, not even TJ Paganetti anymore.
No, you're right. We had a chance to talk to AJ Dillon on Friday. I think the headline here is that he says he feels healthy. He's been cleared by multiple specialists. He had the
East Coast and West Coast, he said.
East Coast and West Coast. He skipped the Midwest. We're going to fly right over those doctors and get the East Coast, West Coast. We'll see. I think it was a significant injury. You get 2 stingers. Anytime you're dealing with a neck, I think it gives you some pause, especially at that position. But he says he's healthy. He says he's actually fresh, feeling pretty fresh right now because he didn't take any hits last year. I think he can probably help them.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, I don't know what to think. Serious injuries, sat out a whole season, and his production was declining before he got hurt. He'd gone. I think it was 3.4 the year he got the last year he played. He averaged 3.4 yards a carry. Now a lot goes into that. Obviously, he's going to be playing behind a really good offensive line when he does get on the field, which I don't think is going to be super often. But it was good to talk to him. He's real confident about his health, and he's working out down in Florida. He wasn't sure when he got cleared, which was odd. He said when he got off IR. He said at first during the middle of the season, he was told he'd be fine for next year. And then when the season ended, he was assured he would be okay for this coming year.
So I know there was some talk in Green Bay last year that he was put on a season-ending IR, which obviously ends the season if he stays in Green Bay. I know at the time there was some chatter about whether or not he would eventually reach an injury settlement and then end up with another team during the 2024 season. That didn't happen, but I wonder if maybe that was a possibility and they were just a little extra cautious with him.
It certainly could be. But yeah, as far as he's concerned, the injury is a thing of the past, and He said he doesn't even think about it now, and it's not. He said he's fine, doesn't feel any issues. So we'll see. And yeah, he said having a year of not getting hit when you're a running back is really like in the middle of your career. All of a sudden, you go, a year without getting hit. That's pretty big. So maybe the injury's a blessing in disguise in some ways. But I'm looking forward to seeing him. I mean, when he was good, he was a pretty good player. It's been a while, and there's been a lot that's happened since then as far as his health. But I think with running backs, you can see pretty early on in camp, like if they still have it, if they have that burst, if they have that, escapability, and we'll get an idea pretty soon. I think pretty soon into camp, what he's got left.
You brought up the yards per carry as like a point that his play started to decline. I mean, that's undeniable. Those are the numbers, but I think he does other things aside from just running between the tackles. You know what I mean? So like in pass protection and being able to catch the ball out of the backfield, I think those things are probably still there. And I think that's going to be his role a lot. We saw Kenny Gainwell really end up in a lot of 2-minute situations. I think maybe that could be a fight between AJ Dillon and Will Shipley for that kind of role. Maybe some third downs here and there.
No, I think all that's true, but I still think it's a little ominous when you see 5-3 to 4-5 to 4-1 to 3-4. And so what's that next number going to look like? And if he's in that role, yeah, the pass catching and the blocking is great, but you also want a guy who's going to average more than 3.5 yards a carry if he's getting a few carries. So the offense can keep moving and get a couple first downs and move the sticks and not be hamstrung. And we'll see what it looks like. We'll see how it goes, but it was, he was certainly optimistic and in a pretty good mindset right now.
Yeah. He said the most he's squatted was 615, which is just a stupid number and to squat. It is fun to think about him and Saquon. Like, think they'll run any 21 personnel with him and Saquon on the field?
I'm not sure. We'll see a lot of that, but it'll be a fun little look.
I like that.
Yeah. A lot of quad power out there.
Yeah, so his nickname is Quadzilla, and Saquon has Saquad's Barkley. That's fun. Jalen squats 600 pounds.
The quad squad, I guess.
I do like the idea. Everyone's talking about like him in the tush push. Like, imagine if you had Jalen and then Saquon and AJ Dillon pushing Jalen. That seems tough to stop.
You have Jalen pushing Jalen?
Saquon pushing Jalen. What did I say?
I thought you said Jalen, Saquon, and
yeah, they'd all be on the field, and they'd have Saquon and AJ pushing Jalen.
Oh, I thought they were all pushing Jalen. I was trying to.
Well, Jalen would be pushing himself. Yeah,
he'd be good in the tush push as a pusher.
He would be. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, maybe you bring in DTR and you have those three guys just throw him over the line, a torpedo.
I'll suggest that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was fun to talk to AJ Dillon. I like when we meet all these new players coming in. I kind of wish we would meet them in person.
Yeah.
We're doing like these Zoom calls, and we'll eventually meet them in person. But it's so weird I haven't met this guy, and I got to ask him about his neck injury.
Yeah, I kind of felt bad. I lucked into the first question today and had to ask him about the injury, but you got to do it. And he was fine. He's a professional. He was good talking about it. The other thing, he at Boston College, Scott Loeffler was one of his coaches. So I should have asked about that, but I figured that's like a Zach Berman question. He loves those college questions. Mm-hmm. He didn't ask that. He followed up on the injury, which was good. Yeah,
but like the Eagles will listen to assistant coaches if they have any insight on players. Sure. So I'm sure Loeffler had something on him.
Yeah.
All right. I wanted to go through the Eagles free agents who were left out there and whether or not the Eagles would have any interest in bringing them back. Obviously, the top one is still Mekhi Becton. As we're recording this, just before 11 a.m. on Friday, he is still available. I think the Eagles obviously would have some interest in bringing him back. And we've talked ad nauseum about what it would take and if those numbers meet. But he's still out there.
That surprise you?
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. I mean, there have been players who are lesser players than him get signed. And I thought he'd be, if not day one of the first few days.
Yeah, I thought so too. And it means that somewhere along the line, someone has, there's a inequity between what he thinks he's worth and what other teams think he's worth, or he would have signed somewhere. So how that affects the Eagles, I mean, they've got a price and it's pretty low. And if his price gets down there, he'll be an Eagle. But I'm guessing it won't, but it could.
I don't know. And the Eagles also have to weigh the comp pick thing. Like, are they willing to sign him and cancel out a pick that they'd have coming their way?
Yeah. If they sign him, he would. And I guess you could always wait till April and hope he's still out there. But I think the odds of that happening are slim. But yeah, you would basically be, if you sign him, you'd be giving up a pick. So
it's almost like you're trading for him at that point.
It really is.
Yeah, so it's not an easy thing to figure out. And entering free agency, I even thought like it's a tough evaluation for him because he has the 1 year at the new position. He has all the history that was very public with the Jets. Is he a guard? Is he a tackle? Do you trust the 1 year? Do you worry about paying him? Like I think that there were a lot of factors, and it made it really tough for me to figure out what he was worth on the open market. And it seems like that's the case around the league too.
It sure does. Yeah. I think we agreed on that. I just didn't know how you would go about determining his value, and I guess a lot of people had that issue.
Yeah. Next guy who is still available is Fred Johnson.
Big Fred.
Yeah, I think they'd be interested in bringing Big Fred back.
I would think so. I would guess that eventually he'll be back.
Okay, that's all you have on.
Yeah, I mean, I think he played better than I expected. I like the way he battled. I thought, he played on both sides. I like his attitude. He's come so far. He's a typical Stoutland guy. I mean, when Fred starts talking about his days with the Bengals and how much of a different player he is now and then, and he just starts laughing. He's like, it's night and day. And Stout's the big reason why. He's another Stout success story. And I think he's a valuable guy to have. It's tough finding backup tackles.
Yeah, I mean, if they had to line up tomorrow, they don't really have a swing tackle. So you got to figure out that position at some point. And it might be the draft.
They don't play Sunday.
That's true.
Just want to make sure you know that.
Thank you. The draft could be where they get that, but I don't know.
Yeah. If I'll tell you what, if I was looking for a backup tackle, he'd be top of my list. I think he's a valuable guy to have.
Yep. Paris Campbell.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot of interest in Paris Campbell. Good story, good guy. But I think he can get better at that spot.
Yeah, probably. Maybe if they want to bring him back for the summer and they want to maybe have him be on the practice squad again as like a insurance policy. If someone gets hurt down the line, I could see something like that, but I don't think they need to re-sign Paris.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what he wants to do. I mean, Nick really had to talk him into coming back and going on the practice squad this past year. Look, you can make good money. A guy like him would make a couple million on the practice squad, so it's nothing to sneeze at. But at some point, Paris Campbell might say, I just want to get on with my life, made some money. He was a fairly high pick, second-round pick. So we'll see. I don't think he's going to start the season here.
Tight end CJ Uzama.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be here either. They signed a tight end. They got Calcaterra back. I think they're going to draft somebody, and we still don't know what's going to happen with Goddard. So maybe they bring him back for camp, but kind of doubt it.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely. And in the Super Bowl, I think he was ready to play, and they still kept EJ Jenkins up over him, and they signed Harrison Bryant. So it seems unlikely Uzama will be back. How about Jack Driscoll?
Jack Driscoll coming off an injury. Don't know when he's going to be healthy. Wasn't he on a on a roller in locker cleanout day, I think.
Yeah, he was in a walking boot. Yeah.
Yeah. Stout likes him, and he's versatile, and he can play a bunch of positions. I think he's got to get healthy and get cleared, and then if that happens, I'd be happy to bring him back.
I don't think it's anything where they have to like rush to get this done with Jack Driscoll. But
we were just in the locker room a month ago, and he was obviously nowhere close to being ready to get cleared. So I would think once that happens, which I have no idea when it would be, then you might see him move there.
How about Britton Covey, who was a restricted free agent? The Eagles didn't tender him, so now he's unrestricted. He is just a free agent now. I would bring him back.
I would too. Yeah. I would bring him back. Another one who had a significant injury last year. I think there's no reason not to. And I like his punt return ability, and I want to get Cooper DeJean off that. So he makes sense to do it.
Yeah, maybe they go through the draft and see if they end up with anyone who can return punts. Maybe they really like Aniyah Smith there, but you don't even know if he's going to be on the roster. I agree with you. I don't think they can have Cooper DeJean returning punts next year.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Vic would agree.
I agree with that, and Vic. Reuben Clark, I don't think he was injured all year. He hasn't played in a couple of years. Probably not going to come back. On defense, Avonte Maddox.
I think he'll be back.
He's really the only defensive free agent left. You can include Brandon Graham, but he's like in a category of his own. Nick
Morrow.
Sure. Okay.
But yeah, Avonte, and I talked about Avonte a couple of weeks ago. I think it would make sense to bring him back. I thought he played well the second time after the bye, after he got benched from the slot job. As whatever he was asked to do, he did it pretty well. He's a guy the coaches like. He knows the defense. He won't cost you anything. I don't see any reason not to bring Avonte Maddox back.
Yeah, I mean, the reason would be just like you just want to get younger, and you think you can find a younger guy to do that job and have that role.
Yeah, and usually getting younger means getting a lot cheaper, but in this case, it wouldn't. So that's why I think maybe Howie would bring back an old. Yeah, I mean, he's going into year 8. He's going to year 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
Avonte is. So he was in that 18 draft with Mulata and Goddard and who's the offensive lineman?
Matt Pryor. Josh Sweat.
So yeah, I'd bring him back. And again, if he's lost too much, and it kind of looked, I mean, he didn't look good that first month in the slot, but I did think he played well after that. It was obviously a much smaller role, fewer snaps, and he did okay. So I'd bring me back some Avonte.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't. Maybe I'd get through the draft and see if you end up. Yeah, you draft a 4th round defensive back who can fill a lot of the special teams role and can give you some depth. I probably wouldn't, but
yeah, I would agree with that. And they might sign him before the draft. I mean, we still have a month, about 6 weeks really before the draft. And Avonte can do a lot of things. He can play slot. He can play safety. He can play outside corner in emergency. Not well, but he can do it. So yeah, if you draft a guy, you probably, his chances of making the team would be minimal. But I have no problem bringing him back.
And the last one is Rick Lovato. I don't think they're going to roster 2 long snappers. So,
yeah, end of an era.
It is. I mean, he played a lot of games for the Eagles.
Yeah, he's like top 10 all time in games played.
Yeah, he has he had a giant Super Bowl 52 tattoo on his like side. Do you think he gets Super Bowl 59 on the other?
Yeah, I mean, if he has already, then if he hasn't already, he might not. But hey, whatever happens, he's a 2-time Super Bowl champ.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we'll get to some questions. We'll talk about some drama in Dallas and a little bit more.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
All right, we're back on the Eagle Eye Podcast. We're presented by Nissan. Reuben Frank and Dave Zangaro are here with you. Miles Sanders is now in Dallas. He's a Dallas Cowboy.
Interesting.
How do you think he'll fare? What do you make of his career? He's had kind of a very strange career.
Yeah, I think to a large extent he was a product of the offensive line, and but I mean he was really good at times. I thought he wasn't as good as his numbers. Like, there's I mean, 1 year averaged 5.5, 1 year was 5.3. Like that's Jim Brown kind of stuff. I don't think he's as good as Jim Brown, but
you don't.
No, I don't.
Okay.
But
are you sure you want to go out on that limb and do that today?
But I think, he was a good back here for a few years, and I don't know if he'll ever play at that level again. I don't know what the Cowboys are doing. I don't think it's going to go super well for him down there. We'll see.
Apparently, Dallas also interested in Cooper Kupp.
Interesting. I'm not sure he's got a whole lot left.
Yeah, he's certainly not the player he once was. He's not going to go for 2,000 again, but he might help them a little bit.
Maybe.
Okay. The more fun thing to talk about with the Dallas Cowboys is the back and forth between DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons. Now, have you been following this?
I wasn't until you sent me the initial rough draft of the podcast rundown, and I read about it. It's fun stuff. It
is fun stuff, and it's more fun because it played out publicly, which is great for us. So DeMarcus Lawrence leaves Dallas. He's doing an interview, and I said, a change of scenery is always good, but Dallas is my home. I made my home there. My family lives there. I'm forever going to be there, but I know for sure I'm not going to win a Super Bowl there. So yeah, we're here.
Here being Seattle.
Yes.
Seattle gave him 3 years, like $45 million.
It was a good deal. I don't remember what it was. I can look it up. Yeah, it was a solid deal for a player who's been really good for a long time. He's not, his best days are behind him. 3 year, $42 million.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been elite in some time.
He's 32 now.
Yeah, and that's the kind of free agent I wouldn't. I like his career. He was a great player, but anyway, that's not the point. The point is, Micah Parsons didn't react kindly to that, and DeMarcus retorted something like, "Well, if
Well, here, let me give Micah's reaction to that first. Let's go in order here. He said, "This is what rejection and envy look like. This some clown bleep."
Some clown bleep. You can figure out what bleep is in that case.
And then DeMarcus Lawrence responds to that tweet.
And this is brilliant.
"Calling me a clown won't change the fact that I told the truth. Maybe if you spent less time tweeting and more time winning, I wouldn't have left."
I love that.
Look, it is funny, but I think everyone is kind of siding with DeMarcus Lawrence here, and I don't know if I am.
Well, he's funnier.
Yeah, no, that is a funny response. I'll give you that. But I kind of understand why Micah is taking it a certain type of way there.
Yeah, and a couple other guys on the Cowboys posted stuff on social media, kind of, I thought we were brotherhood, feel like we're being stabbed in the back here. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of a crappy thing for him to say, but we're talking about a franchise that hasn't been into a conference championship game in 30 years,
But he's a part of that, right? He played 11 years there. He kept
he
signing contracts with them. He kept taking money from them. What?
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I just love when and this stuff never happens with the Eagles, does it? I mean,
it happened a week ago with Slay and CJ Gardner-Johnson. Now they're both gone.
Yeah, but it wasn't. Yeah, that's true. But that was more. It wasn't about the team, is what I'm saying. Like, You don't get that because they win. I mean, Dallas has been really bad for a long time. It's pretty amazing. I mean,
Are you on a side here?
I just wanted to keep going.
Yeah, it stopped, huh?
Yeah, I was hoping it would continue. The Cowboys have won, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 playoff games since 1997. The Eagles won 4 in a month just now. So, yeah. So Jalen's got more playoff wins in the last 30 years than the Cowboys. It's just a bad franchise with great players. I mean, that's what they always have, great players.
Yeah, they've really wasted away some premier talent, and DeMarcus Lawrence is one of them. But like, I don't know, dude, you were playing there. If you wanted to change the culture, help change the culture.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. He has not been an elite player I'm just looking up when's the last time he had even 10 sacks? It was 2018. He hasn't
made
had
the Pro Bowl last year with a 4-sack season.
He hasn't had 7 sacks since 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he was still a good player. I mean, he made the Pro Bowl with 4 sacks, 8 quarterback hits, 10 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble. Yeah, that's a weird one. I mean,
that's a reputation.
Yeah.
Nod.
He's only had 2 double-digit sack seasons in 11 years. I certainly wouldn't have paid him the money Seattle paid him, but yeah. And I mean, I think
Micah has 4 in 4 years, by the way.
Sacks?
Double-digit sack seasons.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a great player, and I guess
they're different players too.
Yeah, I mean, they're very different. He does so many things. I mean, Micah Parsons to me is one of the top defensive players in the league, and he's never won anything. And I think they're about to redo his deal. Is that what it looks like? They're gonna.
I think so. I don't know.
It sounds like they're trying. They don't have the cap space, but they're never going to be any good. They just won't be.
Yeah, I think that obviously what's holding them back is ownership, and you can't force somebody to sell a team. So,
yeah, and he's still living off the 90s, and
he still thinks he's in the 90s.
Yeah, and Dak, I mean, like Dak's 32 now?
Yeah,
and I don't think Dak's an elite player anymore. I mean, a couple of years ago he was really good. I don't know. We'll see, but I think when you look at the division, to me, Washington is the second best team, and I don't love their offseason, but to me, they're clearly better than the Cowboys.
Next week, let's do that. Let's spend some time on one of our pods looking at all the moves the other 3 teams in the division have made this offseason.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, let's do some questions now. If you have a question for us, the email address is eagleeye@nbcuni.com. That's eagleeye@nbcuni.com. The QR code is on the screen. You can scan that and send us a question that way. Let's get into it. First question from our buddy Sarab. David and Reuben, this is my 3rd question submission to this pod, and each time I do it, I feel like I'm asking a friend for thoughts. The simplicity and straightforward nature of your pod is so refreshing among all the noise around. My question is, do you both think that the Eagles are overly confident due to the recent successes in player discovery, Hugh and Coop in the draft, Bone as a free agent on defense, and Mackay as a free agent on offense, to the point that is being detrimental? I remember a similar trap after 2017 where we started calling ourselves a QB factory and signing players akin to Malcolm Jenkins and Chris Long, thinking we would have the same success, only to fail miserably in following years.
When did Jeff Fleur use the or was Howie said quarterback factory, right?
It was Howie.
Yeah. I don't know. I think their player evaluations have been really, really rock solid the last 4 years, and they've had misses. It looks like Bryce Huff might be a miss. Looks very likely he might be a miss, but no, I think there's reason for them to be confident. And I don't think they're under any illusions that all these young guys they're counting on, Sidney and Kelee and Tyler Steen probably, that they're all going to be stars in the league. But I think they got a pretty good recent track record, and I think they have good reason to be confident in their moves.
Yeah, I think this is probably about like because it's true. You look back at 2017 and like all those fringe signings seem to work out, and not all the moves last year worked out. Obviously, Bryce Huff was missed, but a lot of them worked out. I don't think they're under any illusion that like everything they touch is going to be gold, and I think that's why you're seeing like so many of these types of moves, because they have to be creative, and the more chances you give yourself, the higher likelihood one of them is going to hit. But I think it's a fair question, because certainly after 17, they made some really big missteps.
Yeah, no question about it. And it led to a really down period for a few years there.
Yeah. All right. Next question is from Joe. Hi, Dave and Rube. Greetings from the Eagles faithful in Delray Beach, Florida. Howie is smart, experienced, and aggressive, and we're lucky to have him. But I think Howie's superpower is the job security that he has both earned and Jeffrey has granted him. 26 to 28 other GMs don't have the luxury of long-term vision because they know they'll be gone if they don't win in the next 3 to 5 years. So they make splashy moves that look good to the local media, like signing Super Bowl heroes no matter what the price. To borrow a phrase from our stumbling basketball franchise, Mr. Lurie trusts the process, and he knows Howie needs some luck even when he makes the right moves. So Howie will be here as long as he wants. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, it's something I think we've talked a lot about over the years. And I know I wrote about it years ago, just how he's empowered by the fact, and he won't admit this and he won't talk about it. And
he's denied this.
He denies it. He does. But there's no question that when you're a GM and you have, I don't want to say lifetime security, but pretty close to it. Like, what's it going to take for Howie to get fired? I mean, they have to have like 5 straight, like 7-win seasons or something. You can make moves for the long term and not worry about the short term hurting you and hurting your career. And I think Jeff Lurie's smart enough to understand that. And Howie, and the irony of that is, if you're Howie, you can absorb a losing season or two, but because they've been so good, they haven't had that. I mean, they've had one losing season since he became GM again, right? In 20, is that the only one? And 16,
20, yeah.
I guess 16 and 20.
Yeah.
So one losing season. So since 17, they've had 3 Super Bowl trips and 1 losing season. So that gives the GM a pretty fair amount of leeway.
But what I will say is he has that security now that allows him to make those moves. But when he was reinstated to power, he began to make moves that were long-term moves. Like, I don't think he like treated it any differently in 2016 than he is now. Now he's like certainly learned from mistakes. He does things differently because of the natural progression of just like learning on the job. But I don't think he acted like his job was on the line in 2016 either.
That's true.
And I think that's the key. Is like he that's what allowed him to have this job security, is that he never acted like he had to do stuff to make splashes. He made splashes, but it wasn't like he was trying to save his job. He was trying to do what was best for the team long term. And I think that ended up working. And that's why now he has all this job security.
Yeah, I think that's well said.
Okay. Next question is from Adam. Hello, Dave and Rube. I have a 2-part question, and I will insert here that this is not a 2-part question. These are 2 questions. It happens a lot when we hear reporters say I have a 2-part question, and they're just 2 completely separate questions, but we'll answer both of them. Number 1, with the draft coming up, how much did the Eagles PR/scouts look into players' backgrounds before getting drafted, i.e. off the field issues? The reason I bring this up is because of defensive end Mike Green from Marshall, in parentheses, allegations of sexual assault, possibly getting drafted in the middle of the first round. If he falls, will the Eagles try to make a move, or does he have too much baggage?
Yeah, and that's where Dom comes into play, and that's, I think, something he's really good at is like he'll talk to his coaches, his teammates, his friends. He'll find out. He'll talk to his lawyer. He'll talk to the judge. He'll go down to the judge's chambers and barge in and what can you tell me about Mike? But he's really good at it.
It's funny. Dom sounds a little like Rich Kotite.
They all sound the same. Yeah. Yeah. But they trust him to do that, a lot of that legwork, and then he'll present what he's found to Howie and to I don't know enough about the details, but they're certainly not going to they're going to do their due diligence and make a decision. And I can't speak to him specifically because I haven't read any of the cases or anything, but if they're comfortable with where a player is, then, and I think Jalen Carter's a good example of that, who's been nothing but, model citizen since he's been here. And, there's certainly questions about him coming out of Georgia. So you do your due diligence. Sometimes you miss, but you try to make an educated decision based on everything that's available and really dig into a guy's past and find out what he's all about and go from there.
Yeah, you're right. And I think every case is very different. The one thing I think they're on record saying this, like violence against women is something that that's pretty much a no-fly zone for the organization. Obviously they're investigating everything and checking out the allegations and everything like that. But I think Jalen Carter is a really good example. Obviously Michael Vick back in the day, a really good example. Not that they'll overlook things, but they'll get to the bottom of it, and they'll figure out the organization's comfort level with an individual based on what has happened, what they think is going to happen, his makeup, whether it was, maybe in some cases like a kid doing something dumb, or whether it was, I think there's a lot of different layers to that, but they certainly do their homework.
Yeah, they're good at it, and I don't think they've really had any big misses along those lines. At least with high picks.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. 2. If the Eagles beat writers had a basketball team, who and where would you start them? And Adam gives us his team. He has me at the point, Bo Wolf at shooting guard, Kemsky at small forward, McLean at power forward, John Clark at center. He has you as the 6th man, and he has Elliott as the mascot. I'm just reading. This is not I'm just reading. I like me at the point.
Yeah, I've seen you shoot at there's a basket in the auditorium where we do the interviews, and you got a nice shot. You haven't seen most of those guys play.
I've seen Kemsky put up some shots.
Yeah.
Solid shot.
Yeah, he's okay. He's got a good shot, but
obviously John Clark at center makes sense.
Yeah. Clark, he's going to grind when he's out there.
I don't know if McLean is tall enough to be our power forward.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Who'd be good on that team.
I mean, we can steal BLG and put him and Clarkie next to each other down low. That's
a double post.
Yeah.
Phil Anastasia, my old colleague and your old professor, he was a heck of a player. We used to play hoops in Westchester during training camp, and I think he was a point guard at where did he go to high school? Did he go to Gloucester Catholic, I think? And then
I don't know that.
You're supposed to know these things. And he might have played at Rowan. Really good point guard, good shot. But yeah, we'd be pretty bad.
All that to say, we're not winning many games.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question is from Fred. Hi, Dave and Rube. Thank you for the pods. They really helped me stay up on third shift. Glad to hear that. Question. How do bonuses affect the salary cap? When Zach Bond got his big bonus for the Pro Bowl, does that go against the cap? How does the team factor that in? You want me to take this one?
Sure.
So basically, That's an incentive in a contract, and there are two buckets for incentives. There's likely to be earned incentives and not likely to be earned incentives.
I'm looking
And
for a bucket. I don't see one.
you have buckets just around?
Probably my garage. I probably have a bucket.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, the two ways it can go: either likely to be earned or not likely to be earned. And all it basically is did the player do that last year? So if Zach Bond was a Pro Bowler last year, then it's a likely to be earned incentive. If he wasn't, it's not likely to be earned. Likely to be earned, do they count toward the cap? Not likely, don't.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah. This one is from Crane. Hey, Dave and Rube, random thought. I would love to hear if you have any insight on this. With each player of a 53-man roster holding so much importance for potential game day scenarios, why is there essentially two snappers on the team? Just like players can perform on both special teams and defense/offense, and others, looking at you, Coop, can fill nickel and punt returner, why do teams carry two snappers? Especially since the long snapper cannot be contacted on an extra point, field goal, etc. Can't they have any other player that's on the 53 long snap and open a roster spot for another player? Seems like you'd want to be as versatile with those 53 players as possible.
Yeah, I know. A lot of teams like Michael Kendricks in that role. It's really hard. I think it's a long snap at the level you need to play in at this level. You have to be really, really good, and it's really, really hard. And I just don't think you're going to find another player who could do that at that level. Yeah,
and I remember talking to Kelsey about this. Like, he can't long snap. Like, he could, but it wouldn't be good. He's talked about it's just very different. It's a very different motion. Even a shotgun is very different than the long snappers fire the ball. It's a skill to have. And it's just too important. The Eagles are changing long snappers right now because did you notice Rick Lovato struggling? Maybe a little bit, not a lot, but that's how important it is. You can't have miscues. And because you mentioned Michael Kendricks and people have no idea what you're talking about, I think we probably need to explain that.
I think they do, but yeah, go ahead.
Why don't you explain it?
Well, it was who got hurt?
Dornbos.
It was Dornbos, and the Eagles didn't have a backup, and he was taken.
Well, no, the Eagles did have a backup. They had a full plan in place. It was Brent Selleck.
Okay, but he was on the sidelines snapping anyway. And did you go up to him after the game in the locker room and say, were you the next guy? He's like, no, I just wanted to try it.
It was at a point in his career where he was kind of upset about his playing time and his role. And yeah, that was just Kendricks. He was like, I'll see if I can do it. And he just told someone to catch, and he started the long. We thought they were holding. It looked like the team had no idea what they were doing. Like they were holding auditions for the long snapper role. It's like, no, they've been through all these contingencies. They're ready to go with Brent Selleck. And Kendricks decided to just try it out on his
own. He just decided to be a long snapper on the sideline. It was amazing.
He was a different cat.
He was. I like Michael.
I do too. You want to do one more?
Yeah.
I only have one more on my list, so this is perfect. Hello, guys.
I think Michael Kendricks was underrated. I thought he played really well in 17. He was a pretty good linebacker.
Yeah, had kind of a limited role that year, but he did play.
Yeah.
Hello, guys. Love the pod. I discussed it after every listen with my best friend in London who got me into the Eagles. My question is, given how – did I say this was from Alberto?
You did not.
This is from Alberto. My question is, given how many fifth-round picks we have this year and how many picks next year, wouldn't it make more sense for Howie to go against his nature and use them to move up in the first, second, and third rounds to get better, potentially starting caliber players? It certainly worked out with Coop last year. I'm thinking moving up to get a tight end early in the second or a safety in the first if Starks drops to the early to mid-20s. It's going to be hard to get another Mitchell DeJean Hunt Hall, but God knows we need it after losing half our starting defense. Thanks, and go Birds.
Well, what they give you is flexibility, and you have them if you want to move up. And if it doesn't make sense to move up, you have them to pick a player. So that's what Howie wants. He wants that flexibility. The more picks you have, the more flexibility you have, the more options you have. And when somebody starts sliding down, whatever round it is, you have the the picks to maybe make a move up if you can find a team to make a trade with. So yeah, I think he goes into the draft. I mean, most of the picks he doesn't end up making picks with the picks that he starts out with. That he's going to trade them all. He's going to move up, then he's going to move down. He's going to get more picks. He's going to trade them. You know what it's like on draft day. So he's not, I mean, they have 4 5s now, right? I think they have 4 5s.
Yes.
I'll bet you, you know what? I'll bet you they don't use any of those in the spot where they have them right now. It's just
any of them?
Any of them. None of them. He's going to trade them all. And they might end up
I might take that bet.
All right.
4 is a lot.
It is a lot. But
I feel like might be a little hyperbolic, so I'll take that bet.
Could be. But that's how he is. And he sees picks like as they're assets. They're malleable. You can do so many different things with them. You can turn them into other picks. You can take players. You can trade them up, trade them down. So it makes draft weekend really fun because you just never know what he's going to do, and he's more active than any GM. And I don't think there's a GM that really understands how to just the value of picks, the value of combinations of picks, and the best way to use them. So I think it's a real strength of his.
And I think that does a little bit speak to his longevity and knowing his job security, because like it's fun when the dust settles and you go, okay, he started off with this pick and he ended up with this haul and he has these picks next year because he can have those long range plans and maximize the value that way. Yeah,
there was a point where there was a 5 became a 2, and it took 4 years, but he just kept trading it, and then the 5 became a 4, and then the 4 became a 3, and next thing you know, you're drafting a player in the second round with a pick that started out as a 5, and there's other things happening around it, but it's playing the long game, and he has that luxury.
All right, that's it. If you have a question for us, feel free to send it to us, eagleeye@nbcuni.com. And if you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Rube, any final words?
No, we will see you next time.
All right, sounds good. For Reuben Frank, I'm Dave Zangaro. This has been Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.